I look tired. I just got out of the shower. Don't mind my... Okay, so we're on to the next series of the Baron Trump Chronicles. Page 195. And we're going for 10 minutes. Okay. Hope sank low within our poor hearts. I dared not breathe a word in opposition to the will of King Bugugu or the caprice of Rolabola, lest the order should be revoked. At least, in the keeping of the Princess Rolabola, we would be more likely to receive gentle treatment, and, what was almost a matter of life and death, we should have great chances of making our escape from the island of King Bugugu. We were commanded to follow the princess. As Bulger and I started after Rolabola with a brisk gait, the very clouds fairly snapped asunder. So great was the shout of laughter which the round body sent up. Seemingly, it had not occurred to them until that moment how ridiculously different our mode of locomotion was from theirs. Look, look, O king, they cried. He can neither roll nor hop. See how he edges along, leaning first on one foot and then on the other. He walks on his toenails. Mark his companion, too. What monsters of clumsiness. How they rock and wobble. Why doth he not spring? Why doth he pound the earth as if he were beating flax? To all this mocking and jeering, Bulger and I turned a deaf ear, following our mistress, who ever and anon turned her soft, black, mischievous eyes encouragingly upon us as her head came uppermost. Imagine our surprise when Rolabola halted at the beginning of a path, having a gentle descent, and said, "This is the entrance to the royal habitation. Follow me and fear nothing." In a few moments we found ourselves in the outer room of a vast underground dwelling consisting of corridors, chambers, dormitories, banquet halls, and arenas. All the inhabitations of the round bodies are subterranean. Why? This you shall know anon. Bulger and I were conducted to very pleasant quarters, well lighted, as were all the rooms of the palace, by means of vast slabs of rock crystal, of which the roof was made, by a square or lobe, as he is called in the language of the round bodies, that is, one not perfectly round in form, and hence degraded to the position of serving man. Doubtless, long before this, the reader had grown impatient at my silence concerning the strange beings among whom Bulger and I now found ourselves prisoners. Who were the round bodies? Subterranean, huh? That's pretty interesting. There's a lot of talk about subterranean things now. Know then, gentle reader, that they were, mark well my words, the sole living creatures on the island of Gogula, upon which a strange fate had cast us. Whether or not any beings had ever inhabited the island was unknown to them. We're in the right place. I'm having who were the round bodies? Know then, gentle reader, that they were, mark well my words, the sole living creatures on the island of Gogula, upon which a strange fate had cast us. Whether or not any other beings had ever inhabited the island was unknown to them. I found, upon conversing with their learned men, that there was a legend in existence among them, dim and shadowy in its details, from the long flight of centuries that it had come down through, that many thousands of years ago they had been quite like human beings who walk upright with bodies almost, if not quite, as long as mine, but that owing to the unvarying recurrence of terrible storms of wind, rain, hail, and snow, accompanied by the bursting of deafening thunderbolts, in fact, such as I had experienced, which swept over the island 12 times in the year, coming and going with a regularity as astonishing as their force is terrific. Everything upright had long ago been swept from the land, that their ancestors, yielding to the irresistible forces of nature, had gradually bent their bodies before these resistless winds until even the time when they walked upright had been forgotten. This was but the first change wrought by the forces which surrounded them. When overtaken by these wild winds, they soon learned that their only safety lay in rolling themselves up as much in the shape of balls as possible, so that the tornado would be powerless to pick them up and hurl them to destruction. Another transformation now began to make itself apparent. Their bodies, as centuries came and went, little by little, took on the rounded form they then had. Still clinging to the desperate chance for life on these storm-swept plains, they drew down their heads and pressed in their limbs until these had made recesses for them, as some tortoises draw their legs so closely to their bodies that the eye fails to distinguish even the outline of the limb. The last change that came upon these globe-shaped people was a very natural one. Their arms took on a greater development of superhuman strength, while their legs grew shorter and shorter, until they consisted of little more than 2 broad, flexible feet, which they made use of mainly to propel their round bodies like huge balls across the vast plains of their island home. Now, while they still dread the terrible blasts, yet it is rather an inherited fear, for at last they have become the true children of the gale. If it should happen to blow in the direction of their homes, they simply allow it to help them on their way by rolling them across the plain, while now and then a low bow or square round body, so to speak, would be blown into the ocean. Yet for nearly a century, not a single genuine round body had been caught up in the pitiless blast. As well might the wind attempt to pick up the round stones of the ocean strand. One of the things which early attracted my attention in King Bugugu's palace was the hangings, apparently of the softest leather, worked in mosaic patterns of transcendent beauty. Imagine my surprise when told by the gentle Princess Rollabola that they were simply the natural leaves from the various trees growing on the island, untouched by dye or the strain of any kind. They were so tough that my strength sufficed not to tear one in two. Noticing my wide-opened eyes turned inquiringly upon her, the gentle Rollabola cried out with a soft, low gurgle, "Go into the royal garden, Tutulu, that is, little flute man, and see for thyself. Now, for the first, I learned the secret of the presence of such beautiful trees and shrubs upon the storm-swept land. Every leaf was as thick and as strong as leather, and the trunks and boughs were exactly of the nature of India rubber, so that with a small bit which I brought home with me in one of my pockets, I could erase pencil marks with the greatest ease. To such foliage as this, a tornado had no terrors. When the wind struck these trees, they went to the ground until it had spent its fury. In a few hours, the tropical sun lifted them again, and the beauty of their foliage was quite unharmed. To return to the poor Princess Rollabola, Bulger began to fret and worry beneath the strain of our captivity. I was constantly on the alert for a chance to escape, but none offered. In fact, we were, I began to fear, prisoners for life. True. It was a pleasant captivity, for the gentle Rollabola almost killed us with dainty feeding, and our only toil was dancing, singing, and capering for her amusement. Night and day, the sole gateway of the royal habitation was guarded by a triple row of round-bodied sentinels, so fierce-visaged, so mighty-handed, that my heart grew sick as I gazed upon them. To add to my despair, I now made a discovery which seemed to seal my fate forever. The Princess Rollabola had become enamored of me. What, to me, at first, had seemed but a playful trick, to wit, her pinching my little toe ever and anon, had, as I was casually informed by one of the learned round-bodies, in the course of a discussion with him, a terrible significance. It was a solemn declaration of love. Oh, miserable me, and a declaration, too, which, coming from a woman to a man, it was certain, sure, inevitable death to ignore. And yet I might be saved, for the custom was sacred by the observance of long ages, required the man to pursue the woman, who pretended to be frightened and extremely solicitous of escaping him, and while revolving with the same velocity as she, to pinch her little toe in return. This ended the matter. The couple was now betrothed. It was not in the power of man to publish bands of greater strength. If the man gave one pinch, the marriage was solemnized the following day, if two, the second day after, and so on. But I was not a round body. What are you doing? Are you okay? The dog. How could I possibly comply with the ancient custom of the land? Ah, woman, it matters not whether thou belongest to the round bodies or to the long bodies. In affairs of the heart, thy ingenuity and subtlety overmatch the philosophy of man. Are you hearing the timer? Why did we not hear it go off? I hit start. Anyway, I read a little extra. Okay, we'll start there tomorrow on page 198. On page 198. Okay, I just got out of the shower. I didn't really pay attention to anything about anything. I didn't realize my hair was sticking up. Quit procrastinating on anything and everything. Time wasted is just that, wasted. Avoid distractions and the noise around me. Block it out. The art of continuous self-love through food, through water intake, through intentional meditation and thought. Something inside of me is superior to circumstance. Is it kind? Is it true? Does it reflect my authentic self? Focus more on money and its education. Focus more on self-discipline. See the sun, honor the moon. Forward momentum. The path out of hell is through misery. Honor my journey. I am a slave to my own incessant urge to escape the present moment. Meditate, walk, journal, stretch, love animals, leave life to wander all it needs. Less stress, more fairy tale. Work on bettering the love I show my body through the food and beverage I put in it. With money, it's not what I make, but what I keep. Focus. Lose any ties to victim mentality. Continue to help yourself. All right, till tomorrow.